The Masque of the Red Death is a short story by Edgar Allan Poe, which is remarkably prescient given the current circumstances. It tells of a wondrous masked ball at which someone turns up dressed as an ominous spectre of death. Now, I will admit I had to look up what jazz noir meant, and I'm still not 100% sure that I know, but going for an ominous femme fatale look felt like the right thing to do in this circumstance. I am not a makeup artist, or indeed a makeup YouTuber, so apologies for making you sit through me putting a face on. I tried to go for a relatively simple look. I did a very pale foundation base with a smoky eye, lots of pencil and eyeliner to make my eyes as mysterious and sinister as humanly possible. Over the pale foundation, I did an all-over ghostly highlighter. This is one from Revolution's Halloween collection a few years back. And some greyish contouring that's a lot heavier than what I would normally go for. I also tried to pick out my collarbones since I knew I'd be wearing a rather low-cut dress. And of course, a vampy look is not complete without the perfect vamp lipstick. I picked out this slinky black dress. I got it from a charity shop some years ago. It is ridiculous. I also have an ex-theatre pillbox hat with an attached veil, a vintage coat, which is honestly one of the fanciest things that I own, and a basic pair of black heels. Add into this some earrings, a simple necklace, and a brooch to draw attention to the plunging neckline, and a very long pair of gloves. And the final look is something like this. Elegant, distinguished, slightly sinister, just waiting for you to pull out the fake blood and go full ominous spectre of death on everyone at the party. So this prompt threw me a bit. Initially I was like, knitwear, right? I can do knitwear. I couldn't get all the colours to harmonise in a way that I thought was nice, and the textures just weren't working. And I really didn't feel I was getting across Warlock from any of this. Also, the reference to Necromancers was throwing me a little. So I went back to the drawing board and had a bit of a think about how I would convey a Warlock with then some yarny overtones as opposed to starting from the yarn end. After all, I always feel like Warlocks are the bad boys of the D&D party makeup, which is how I ended up with this. I kept the jumper I picked out because it has a really cool chain and spikes detail on it. Chucked that on top of the shirt and trousers I was already wearing, added a pair of knee-high boots, a little bit of gold to accentuate the face. I use Illamasqua's liquid metal, which I've had for literally a decade, and I'm still going through the one pot. It's the goldest gold I've ever found, and I use it all the time. The crochet hook holster and scholar's gown are possibly things that you might not have in your wardrobe. So today we have two little mini tutorials. Can confirm, writing backwards on your own face, really difficult. Get someone else to write on your face for you. Firstly, the holster, which to be honest was really simple. I made some holes in a little piece of foam until I had a slot that the crochet hooks would easily fit through. And then I basically just made as many of those as there were crochet hooks. Once that was all done, I folded it in half, hot glued it down, added a little bit of detailing, just again with hot glue, and painted the whole thing gold. If I'd intended this as a longer lasting piece of kit or something that I intended to use literally ever again, I probably should have base coated or primed this or something. I didn't bother. It was fine. Fundamentally, it just gave me a nice accessory which I could add on to my belt, which really sold the magical yarn wizard aesthetic. And then the scholar's gown. If you wanted to make a more serious and historically accurate scholar's gown, this is the book that I would recommend. It has a lot of patterns and cutting diagrams in it. However, we're instead going to do a quick and dirty hack version that I came up with some years ago. First of all, you're going to need the measurement across your back, and the easiest way to get this is to find a shirt that fits you quite well and measure arm to arm. Then you want to take half that measurement down from the folded edge of the fabric. This piece of fabric is about 100 by 56 inches, at least that's what the tag on it says, just folded in half, so it's as square-like as possible. Then parallel to the fold, you're going to measure down about how deep you think your arm needs to be, and then a little bit more because trust me, you've underestimated this. And then if you're me, you're going to spend quite a long time trying to eyeball how much space you're going to need for your arm. Go smaller to start off with, try it on a few times. It's always going to be possible to take more off. And again, you can use the shirt that you've got as reference. You're going to have kind of a teardrop shape which you want to cut out. And at that point, you can open it up and, to start off with, pin the sides together. This is where it gets a bit weird. I'll show this more clearly in a second, but you're basically going to attach the cut side of the lower edge of the fabric to the selve edge of the back piece. Give it a quick bit of a try on. If you decide, like I did, that those holes are not big enough, you can just make them a little bit bigger. I was pretty happy with my second go. You can do as much finishing and polishing on this as you want, but fundamentally the only other thing you need to do to make it wearable is to round off that square bottom edge. Please excuse the angle, but this I just wanted to include so you can watch me freehand a circle skirt style curve by eye. Sometimes I wonder why any of you trust me to try and teach you anything. Let me explain those shoulder seams one more time. This is the piece of fabric unfolded with the back piece of the gown flat on the ground. As you can see, I'm bringing the sides over, cut edge to selve edge, and the selve edge of the front going straight down the front of your body. And that's the same on both sides. All you have to do is sew those two tiny seams, and especially if you've made it out of a fabric that doesn't fray and it's just for a costume, you're ready to go. I hope you've enjoyed today's costume, and I will see you tomorrow. So I immediately knew I wanted to use this coat, which, okay, it's cheating a bit. I did make this, and it's not exactly easily replicable if you don't have something like this around. However, I feel any long coat, in particular if you can get a blue one, would work. I also pulled out my black velvet culottes, because culottes, a waistcoat, and the one white button-up shirt that I have that fits me, that I use for basically everything. Add in a pair of gloves, a greeny blue coloured neck scarf, a hat that I got from Primark, and a pair of low-heeled knee-high boots. However, I felt that in order to really sell the Spirit of the Water look, I needed a very powerful makeup. I started by blocking out my contouring with a large brush and some blue eyeshadow. Whenever I'm trying to do a non-human creature, what I try and do is contour my face a bit weirdly. Pick a part of the face that you wouldn't normally accentuate or deepen and really go to town on it. Which is how I ended up with a weird kind of frowny brow line. I think it works. I went in with a couple of different shades of blue to deepen out that contour. put some shimmery eyeshadow on my eyelids, and then highlighted my face with a bright silver shimmer eyeshadow to really give it a watery shine. Go in heavy with the white eyeliner pencil. This is the one from NYX that literally everyone uses. And some blue mascara. It doesn't really work, but it makes me feel better. Then I built up some texture using a silver eyeliner pencil. Went in over my eyelids with a holographic eyeshadow topper and a holographic lip gloss on my lips. Then I decided I wanted that scaly texture to be a little bit more emphasized, so I used a liquid highlighter. I think this is a Halloween one from Revolution a bunch of years ago, and using a small brush just did a kind of abstract dabbing pattern, which almost looks like scales in the correct light. Once I felt I was suitably shimmery and sparkly, it was time to put everything on for the complete look. I hope you've enjoyed today's costume, and I'll see you tomorrow. So we're going all black with this one, which is a really easy thing to end up looking flat and kind of uninteresting. These are some linen trousers from Primark. I use them for basically everything. I've also got a basic black long sleeve t-shirt, again just from Primark. And now we want to introduce some different textures and layers over the top of that. So I'm starting with this chiffon and lace high-necked top, and then this lace frock coat, again, both Primark. I have this harness, which came from Taobao, but you can get similar kind of things from a lot of goth shops and indeed various online. This leather bandolier is something I've had in my LARP wardrobe for a couple of years now. These aren't the easiest thing to find, but you can easily replace them with a sash or some other kind of crossbody thing to add texture. A really simple black headband. I bought a multi-pack of these from Amazon in every colour of the rainbow, and they're really useful just as a base for anchoring stuff onto your head. This veil again came from Taobao, but as you can see it's just a semicircle of black chiffon. And then I have this triangular lace scarf that I got in a charity shop, which I'm going to wear over my face. This scarf I have has a gold foil pattern on it, but from the back it's far more muted and interesting, so we're also going to chuck that into the mix. Add a suspicious looking pendant, gotta get that cult aesthetic in somewhere, and a weird thing hanging around your neck is honestly the best you can do. Some long black fishnet gloves, that's a proper shinobi vibe going on, and then some braces, which I made, the all-important sword, same LARP sword I use for literally everything, and a pair of black knee-high boots. These are the Ray boots from Pozu, I adore them. And the most important accessory of all, a candelabra with electric candles, because why wouldn't you have a silver candelabra with candles? These I just got off Amazon. quickly consulting the internet for what people wore in Jurassic Park, I settled on a cream-coloured pair of trousers, this plaid shirt, a jacket from Pontifex that is vaguely tweed, a belt, the all-important fedora, this is actually a fedora, not what the internet thinks a fedora is, and a red bandana to tie around my neck. Add in the obligatory pair of knee-high boots, a leather journal and pen, and of course, our little friend. And this very quick costume was pretty much ready to go.
Hello friends, I'm just chiming in with a quick interlude from the kit mines. In the 2015 film Jurassic World, the character of Claire, portrayed by Bryce Dallas Howard, had a now infamous scene where she ran away from a T-Rex while wearing stiletto heels. This has led to approximately 5 years worth of jokes about women running in heels. I'm just here to let you know that 1, it's not funny, it was never funny, please stop, and 2, just because you can't run in heels doesn't mean it isn't possible. I am the first person to advocate for sensible footwear at LARP. In character stops at the ankle, please wear decent shoes. However, if you're in an indoor venue or otherwise have accepted the associated risks, because yes, running in heels is more dangerous than running in basically any other kind of footwear at all, other than maybe flip-flops. But if you have taken that on board and decided that what you really want to do is show up to this horror LARP in 6-inch stilettos because you know you can put on a turn of speed in those and you probably won't twist your ankle and die, good on you! And no one should judge you for it. Checking in to make sure the person is okay with the level of physical activity that will be required? Sure. Making jokes about getting eaten by dinosaurs because you're wearing silly footwear, you're boring. Also, if you are going to wear heels to a game, I recommend something like this that fits very snugly around your ankle and has a wide heel base. The main problems you run into with heels is the shoe sliding off your foot or not making proper contact with the heel when you're in motion. These two things will pretty much counteract that very effectively. Other top tips: 1, practice. 2, avoid mud. Just trust me, soft surfaces and heels are not your friends. But sure, I may not be as fast in 4-inch stilettos as I am in, you know, trainers, but that doesn't mean you get to make a crappy joke about it. Because guess what? If you're only going to make jokes about things that pretty much only femme people wear, you're a dick and no one likes you. See you tomorrow, guys!
So my initial thought for this one was actually that I was going to do something vaguely deer inspired. Pretty much just because, you know, fawn makeup is cute and I don't care what anyone else says, I'm sticking with it. Then because it's me, I thought about it way too much and it ended up being weirdly high concept. The thing is, if you picked one animal to be the god of the land, and the landscape of the entire British Isles has been intensely shaped by one animal in particular, but it's not a deer. All across England we have beautiful rolling hills, none of which would be remotely visible if we hadn't cut all the forests down and grazed sheep on it for hundreds of years. More than anything else I can think of, the thing that has shaped the landscape of Britain is sheep. So that's a really long-winded way of explaining why I am dressing up like a woolly bar lamb. I pulled out my new Doc Martens because look at them. I have a pair of ram's horns and a pair of sheep ears, a headscarf, a curly wig, and this shawl which I wove myself. I wanted to start with a base of something very kind of pastoral and cute, so I picked out this frilly blue dress. These are chiffon belly dancing skirts that I like to layer up. And then I threw on my all-purpose raincoat that I got from a market stall some years ago. It was £5, it's aquascutum, it's amazing. I'm not entirely happy with how the final thing came out. I feel like it needs a little bit more work. The overall impression was pretty cute, and I think it was an interesting take on the prompt. You guys know the drill by now. button-up white shirt, waistcoat, a long black skirt with a white skirt to go underneath to look like a petticoat, black blazer and a wig because I don't think I can style out green hair, peaked cap, scarf, knee-high boots, mittens. I'd also like to take this moment to let you all know that we have reached our goal on Ko-fi. Ko-fi, the thing where you can financially support this channel through a one-off donation. I'm super excited for my new camera batteries, and I guess I'm gonna have to come up with a new goal now? You can find a link to my Ko-fi page in the description box below, and leave a message in the comments about what you think the next goal should be. I don't know, sky's the limit. Thank you all so much for helping make this channel a success. So aside from the fact that you all seem to think I have some sort of cult obsession, the first thing that came to mind was this mask. Now, this mask is from Hysteria Machine, link in the description below. I adore it, it's wonderful, it's incredibly intricate and beautiful. Yes, I can see through it, but it is also very expensive, so I'm going to also try and put together a look that doesn't use this, or could use it interchangeably. This is a fast fashion corset that I've had lurking around for a little while. I wore 2 skirts, a ruffly one for body, and then a plain black one to go on top. A sheer top for underneath the corset just to fill things out a little bit better, and a black lace scarf pinned to the back of my head as a veil. This headdress is from Taobao, but honestly it's just some lace stuck to a headband with some chains hanging off the front. You could make something like this super easily if you can't get one exactly like it. I also wore this necklace, which I've had for absolutely years, and it's a nice statement piece. A very simple pair of earrings from Claire's or something. A pair of black lace gloves. I think these just came from a Halloween shop. And I also had this kind of spiky beady necklace that I pinned to the top of my head to add some more dimension. After putting down a base layer of foundation, I did some slightly weird contouring with a sort of metallic pink, just to make myself look a little bit supernatural. And then it was smoky eye time. I started with a base of a dark red and then built up darker and darker colours moving in towards the inside until I properly had that kind of sunken corpse thing going on. I did a full circumference of black liner and then went in and added some streaks or tears running down my face. To start off with, I just kind of sketched these in on both sides to check I was happy with the lengths and the placement. Then I went through, thickened them up, made them a bit messier. Because this eyeliner is sort of like a brush pen, you can dab it on at the end to leave a kind of teardrop shape. I really enjoy drawing on my face with stuff. Who knew? Then I'm adding some bright red glittery highlighter. This is from one of Revolution's previous Halloween lines. It's called Blood of My Enemies. I put it on with the dropper and then kind of smoked it out with a brush. Although I have to say, you guys, this did stain my face quite badly and took a good 24 hours to get rid of. So 0 out of 10, do not recommend. Just use fake blood and glitter. I didn't want to do too much to my lips, so basically I just put a little bit of the leftover highlighter on there and then blotted it out. Lots of dark pencil on the waterline, again just to make my eyes as dark as possible, and ridiculous quantities of mascara. And we were ready for the final look. So I started out with about 2 meters of this kind of amazing iridescent organza, and we're going to make a robe out of it. To start off with, find the center and fold the 2 corners in to meet that. This will give you a large piece for the back and 2 smaller pieces for the front, which I'm now just cutting apart down, well, I used the fold lines. Here I'm laying one of the front pieces on top of the back piece. I measured down about how big I wanted the sleeve to be, and then inwards about how far I wanted it to go. Measured halfway down the remaining length of the fabric. Now I'm just going to freehand a teardrop kind of shape that's going to form the side and the underarm. That shape will then get flipped around and sewn onto the lower end of the robe in order to give it more fullness at the bottom and less around the body. And now I'm just repeating that on the other side, so cut those apart, so smaller front piece, large back piece. Lay the front piece on top. And for this side, I can use the side I've already cut as a template. You can see the sleeve shape at the top and the shaping under the arm, and I'm just going to cut out this teardrop. A top tip if you are sewing with organza, if you have a rolled hem foot, use that to do all of your seams. They don't come out perfect rolled hems, but it does do a lot to help prevent it from fraying. However, obviously that robe is see-through, so I needed a top to go underneath it. This is just a long strip of fabric, which I've actually torn out of an old sheet. I've folded it in half with the fold at the top, that's going to be your shoulders, and I'm cutting out a neckline. Make sure it's centered on the body, and then make sure it is deeper in the front than it is in the back. I actually think I could have shifted the whole thing much further forward, and this neckline was still a little bit too high in front. But the worst thing that's going to happen is it's going to hang slightly unevenly from front to back. I could have just belted this, but I actually wanted to put some ties on it, so I pulled out from my stash these strips of kind of stretchy blue mesh. And I decided I was going to attach 2 in front, quite high up, and 1 in the back, sort of at the waistline. Now there's lots of ways you can put a design on fabric, but honestly, if you are short on time and not hugely interested in longevity, you can just paint straight on fabric with acrylic. It lasts reasonably well. I knew I wanted to do a blue background for this symbol, so I started by sketching out roughly how I wanted it to look in blue. You can also use a pencil if you don't want to fill in the background. While I'm painting, you're probably wondering what this whole atomic priesthood thing is all about. Unless you already know, but talk about culturally specific bits of information. So there's this thing called nuclear semiotics, which is basically the study of how you encode nuclear warning messages over the lifetime of nuclear waste, which is of course millennia. I highly recommend you look it up. They are fascinating and include such weird and wonderful suggestions as flowers and cats that change colour when exposed to nuclear radiation. No one really established how those were actually going to work. Intimidating architecture to try and scare people away. Fundamentally misunderstanding how human beings work, at least any human being that's ever played Dungeons and Dragons. Encoded warning messages, some of which you may have heard before. And then, of course, the atomic priesthood. The idea that you would create a religion around the idea that nuclear waste was bad and should be stayed away from, and that this would keep people safe. It lends itself very well to a particularly gentle and benign kind of post-apocalyptic wasteland. And I've always been very fond of the idea of a gentle ray punk style future where much has been forgotten, but the things that are remembered are a little bit offbeat. Principally, I hope this costume build has given you some ideas for how you can put together some quite pleasing looking garments out of very, very basic shapes and very little sewing. Never underestimate a bold colour scheme and some really obvious symbology to get your point across. I think you can make a costume similar to this one in shape, but with a lot of different aesthetics, just by changing out the colours, what symbols you used, maybe some of the fabrics, and it all goes together really quickly and with relatively little sewing. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you for another costume in our Halloween 2020 collection tomorrow. This place is a message and part of a system of messages. Pay attention to it. Sending this message was important to us. We considered ourselves to be a powerful culture. This place is not a place of honour. No highly esteemed deed is commemorated here. Nothing valued is here. What is here was dangerous and repulsive to us. This message is a warning about danger. The danger is in a particular location. It increases towards the centre. The centre of danger is here, of a particular size and shape, and below us. The danger is still present in your time as it was in ours. The danger is to the body and it can kill. The form of the danger is an emanation of energy. The danger is unleashed only if you substantially disturb this place physically. This place is best shunned and left uninhabited.
Hello friends! Okay look, I'll keep this short. This was a really hard prompt to do. It took me a really long time to get around to it, and not just because I decided to crochet pride flag scarves for myself and a cuddly toy. That's a thing that I did for some reason. Okay, so almost every video that talks about Harry Potter at all in any context in recent times has included a section basically entitled "We need to talk about J.K. Rowling." I'm here to say that, honestly, I don't want to talk about J.K. Rowling anymore. To start off with, I felt very strongly that what I really wanted to do was not include this at all and just post this video as is. But over the weeks that I've been preparing this and just the world turning over as it has been, I honestly felt like I couldn't face the comments section of this video if I didn't say something. I've had a lot of very well-meaning people who wanted to ask, you know, as a trans person, how do you feel about the whole thing? And the honest answer is exhausted. Your trans friends and co-workers right now are mostly tired. I'm tired of discussing it. I'm tired of being reminded of it constantly. I'm tired of the continuing disappointment of the endless stream of people who apparently see fit to decide whether or not I get to exist and that want to legislate against everyone's bodily autonomy in order to make sure that I can't. I appreciate all you folks want to be supportive, and that's great. Honestly, everything that needs to be said on this subject has been said. You can find it on the internet. Don't give J.K. Rowling money. Support your trans friends. Please stop bringing it up. That's pretty much it. See you tomorrow? Whoops.
Okay, let me explain this one a little bit. During lockdown, I have been running a online LARP, tabletop, role-playing game. Let's go with role-playing game. Over Discord, audio only, in which the hashtag Alien Menace is represented solely through ominous ambient music. I've actually used ambient music widely across the whole game for a bunch of different effects, and really enjoyed the experience of working in a different medium. I'm a very visual person, but music is one of my great loves. Can't make it, love listening to it. I was actually incredibly overjoyed to discover that two of the artists I've used quite a bit during this campaign have made music for the YouTube audio library. Check out Jeremy Blake at Red Means Recording and Amulets, who you are listening to right now. However, what you guys need to know is that someone challenged me to take the Alien Ambient playlist and render it into visual form. In other words, make it fashion. I really wanted to use an unconventional material in this, just because this is a genre of music that's all about unconventional instruments. Watch some of Amulet's videos to see how they make music, and you'll understand what I'm on about. Unfortunately, I forgot to record the process of turning this roll of 35mm film. It's actually a trailer for the film The Day After Tomorrow, which I don't think I've ever seen, and definitely don't remember if I did. I didn't manage to record the process of turning this into a wearable garment, which, to be honest, mainly involved sellotaping bits together until it roughly wrapped around my body. It turns out that film is not a great medium for sewing with. Who knew, right? In the same breath, it's weirdly inorganic and strangely malleable, and it makes a low-key chittering noise when you shiver. Although the whole costume doesn't quite work the way I intended and definitely isn't wearable for any length of time, it has been a really nice exercise in working with an unfamiliar material, and I don't think I've ever seen anyone make something out of film before. And in case you're wondering, 35mm film trailers are actually relatively cheap on eBay. Obviously, if you want a film that you've heard of or really like, you're going to pay over the odds for that, but there are a lot of terrible movies out there. And if you don't actually care what you're getting and you just want to use it for craft projects, you can get job lots of quite a lot for not very much. When I checked just before this video, you can even get this exact trailer that I have for about $5, which isn't bad. As you can see, you get a lot of material out of it. So I'm going back to the drawing board on this one, but hopefully I've given you some ideas about how you can make something strange and alien by using a very unfamiliar material. And I'll see you tomorrow. So I've started with a chiffon blouse with big sleeves. It's got a tie neck, but I'll just tuck that in. A black evening bodice. I can't remember if I got this from a charity shop or off eBay. A white ruffly skirt from a charity shop as a petticoat. And then this skirt, also from a charity shop, on top. This skirt isn't ideal. I'd have liked something with the less details on it, but the colour was about right. I wanted something long and very full, and I don't really have any gathered maxi skirts. I should fix that. Then I ended up doing two slightly different looks for this character. So for a smart daytime look, I used this jacket, which is velvet with some lovely embroidered details, a wig because green hair didn't feel very appropriate, a snood, which is like a little hairnet, some crochet gloves, two separate rosaries because I'm that goth, and you probably guessed it by now, knee-high boots. Then for the kind of evening hunter look, I used my raincoat, a fedora because I don't have a cowboy hat, and a replica cap-firing pistol. Overall, I really like how this look went together. It's super comfy, and easy Victorian is one of my personal favourite things in the world, but I kind of can't imagine myself ever actually wearing it, other than, you know, around the house. The Wild West as a setting seems to be quite popular in the UK, and I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe because we're sufficiently distanced that it just feels like a fantasy setting to us, and we don't have to deal with the crippling social and cultural implications of colonisation and expansion throughout the North American continent. I don't know. I kind of like westerns. The setting doesn't really appeal to me. In a way, I guess it's nice to have a go at making an outfit for a setting that I would never normally play. Anyway, that's me for today, so I will see you tomorrow. So many possibilities. You can have man singing about a girl who doesn't love him anymore. Man singing about his sad childhood. Woman attempting to sell this as an R&B track despite all evidence to the contrary. Girl wearing a wedding dress because, I don't know, the song's about love? Inexplicable pirate costume. Whatever the heck this was. Moldova was robbed.
Okay kids, let's talk about fascism. So I appreciate Hey Kids, Let's Talk About Fascism is not the best start to a video that you can have, but this is what we're going to talk about while I polish my boots. So I use clear shoe polish because I have a collection of very silly boots and I don't use any special cloths, I just use rags. And as you can see, I am sitting on top of a layer of packaging material that I really hope is not going to ruin the sound quality of this whole video beyond all recognition. Cool, where was I? Fascists. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with fascists in fiction being kind of sexy. If you're not sure what I mean, think about the Empire in Star Wars, the MCRN, the Imperial Raj, and Yoon Ha Lee's Machineries of Empire series for a slightly more nuanced take on the genre, and at the other end of the extreme, you know, the Imperium of Man, which, guys, I know you're bored of hearing me talk about this, but really, when are we going to stop making 40k LARPs? Like, it's been done, it's not that interesting, and there is something weirdly unexamined about that particular branch of fascism. And I guess that's why I feel that maybe this is something we need to talk about. Because don't get me wrong, do not misunderstand me. I love playing bad guys. It's one of my favorite things to do. I absolutely adore inhabiting the mindset of an absolutely terrible or even just unremittingly ruthless human being for a weekend. It's great. A lot of the time we take it for granted that everyone here knows that it's fiction and we're playing and this is not something we want to do or be in real life. But there's always that one guy. You know that one guy? And if you don't know that one guy, I need you to have a long, hard think about whether or not you are that one guy who occasionally is just like, well, you know, I don't see anything wrong with what we're doing. It's a real challenge in fiction to not replicate the prejudices, isms, language use of the real world in your fictional setting with your completely fictional, that was a horrible noise, with your completely fictional, you know, discrimination against elves or whatever. When you're playing around with space empires who routinely glass planets and insist on a human-centric monoculture and, you know, torture people to death in order to ensure a higher standard of living for a small number of people. That kind of thing, you know what I mean? When we're dealing with fictional fascism, I think there is an onus to be openly and explicitly anti-fascist outside of the game space. I don't think there's an easy answer to how do you prove you're not a fascist, you just play them sometimes at weekends. But I think it is something that we have to be conscious of. I don't think it's something you can take for granted. I think now more than ever there is an expectation on all of us to be openly and loudly anti-fascist at all times. not just assume that people know. And I think that goes doubly so if, like me, you weirdly enjoy pretending to be a terrible person sometimes. Equally, if you're not a LARPer, the idea that people who enjoy playing fictional characters would enjoy playing the baddies is probably a new and interesting idea. And I'm going to be completely honest, I'm not sure if I'm the best placed person to explain why it is that I like occasionally playing psychopaths, murderers, and generically awful human beings. If any psychologists want to get into LARP, let me know. But in general, we play baddies at LARP. It is okay to play baddies at LARP. It is okay to enjoy the aesthetics of the Imperial Navy on the understanding that they are fictional. If you're going to start dressing up in knee-high leather boots and slightly esoteric iconography, I don't think you should be surprised that you have to openly and vehemently express your non-fascist beliefs, because we should all be doing that. But it goes doubly so if you look like one of the baddies sometimes. And just so I'm entirely clear, I'm not specifically calling out any of the, 7 Warhammer 40k LARPs in the UK? That's too many. I'm just saying, that's too many. I'm sure whichever one you do is, fine and full of nice people and don't understand the appeal, but I don't need to. So, have fun, do the work, speak out against fascism at all opportunities. Don't fall into the trap of assuming that in your fiction you're playing one of the good fascists, because there are no good fascists. They're all terrible. But playing a terrible person is okay, sometimes. Just don't be a terrible person in real life. Have I made any sense at all?
So I'm going to start with this little black dress. I think this came from Primark. I wanted some kind of Vocaloid-alike headset, but all I had was this gaming headset that I use for playing D&D on Discord, so I just tucked the cable down the back of my shirt. I picked out a nice bold wig, these silvery leggings that are getting a proper workout this October, and then I'm going to layer a pair of torn fishnet tights over the top of those, because it's not cyberpunk unless there's punk elements. These satin high-heeled boots seemed like the most Pop Idol thing I owned, which introduces another colour to the mix, so we're going to back that up with a lot of accessories. I've got several necklaces which I'm actually going to use in different parts of the body, some hairpins, earrings, bangles, and then I did a nice bold makeup look to match. When it comes to Cyberpunk, I could easily have just dug into the massive collection of Cyberdog I seem to have for some reason. If you're a person who fits Cyberdog sizes, eBay is your friend. There's loads of cheap stuff out there. But not everyone does fit into those sizes, and you can fall into the trap of assuming you need to have a particular kind of clothing in order to do a Cyberpunk look. For me, the key points when it comes to doing something futuristic but relevant is to use unusual textures, lots of metallics, contrast bright colours, and if you can incorporate technology somewhere, go for it. I really think doing a cyberpunk look using only stuff you can find in your wardrobe and not getting into weird lighting effects or anything especially expensive or fancy is not only very achievable but can look really, really effective. Anyway, what was that about dressing for the futuristic dystopia you want, not the one that you're stuck with? I'll see you tomorrow. This one was actually pretty easy because, in case you hadn't noticed, I am a massive goth. I've got a pair of cut-off jean shorts, some Halloween skeleton tights, and a nice appropriate graphic tee. These boots are embroidered with the nerve pattern of the foot, which is kind of exciting. Some fishnet gloves, the same purple wig from yesterday, don't sue me, chunky earrings, a bunch of different skull and death themed necklaces. The trick when you want to wear a lot of necklaces is to pick ones that don't all end at the same place. If you have a long necklace that is slightly too long, you can always tie a knot in it to make it a little bit shorter. And then I just added a leather coat and some classic 90s goth makeup. Overall, I'd like to add more details to this outfit, but I think it's really fun, and I would be excited to play this character. They definitely look like the kind of person who would lurk in the corner and say things like, "Don't worry about your friend, we'll have them back on their feet in no time." Stay tuned and I'll see you tomorrow. Because they didn't get used the other day, I really wanted to utilise these high-waisted shorts from Cyberdog, which I'm layering over the top of some brightly coloured tights and then another pair of socks, because why not? Underneath that I'll wear this hoodie, these fingerless lace gloves, and this baseball cap. These two things seemed pretty essential for the Pokemon trainer look, and unfortunately all I had was lace fingerless mitts and a hiking cap. I could probably do better if I spent more than 20 minutes on this costume. I picked a pink wig to make it look properly anime, and then of course the most important accessory of all, a belt with some Pokeballs on it. To make the Pokeballs, I used these fillable baubles that I just got from a craft shop. I base coated them, painted one half red and one half white, so when they fitted together they looked pretty perfect. And then I made the details out of foam. It took a bit of trial and error to get the sizes that I wanted, and honestly I could probably have made these much neater than they ended up being, but this was only supposed to be a quick craft project that honestly got terribly out of hand. I hot glued the button design into the centre of each ball, and then added a thin strip of foam around the equator to make them match up exactly with the reference image. And with all that done, I was finally ready to leave my hometown and start my Pokemon journey. In the spirit of chaotic neutral exuberance, I threw this together really quickly and at the last minute. I have this green jumper that came out of the wash looking kind of worse for wear, some fuzzy leggings, which are the warmest thing in the world, a pair of hand-knitted socks that match neither, this crocheted coat, which I ended up not using, a funny knitted hood, a blanket wrap, and all the costume jewellery I could find. No, really. All of it. This costume was super cozy and a lot of fun. I've definitely been channeling my Goblin Energy during lockdown, subsisting entirely on snacks and spending most of my time wrapped in blankets. I think this costume might be the purest expression of my true form. I'm almost frightened to put it on the internet. I hope you've enjoyed today's costume, and I'll see you tomorrow. So I'd actually had a mech pilot character planned for earlier this year. Obviously that didn't happen, but I still had the armor pieces that I'd made for that. These are just foam, and not even very good foam. I used this embroidered ribbon that has some Latin words on it. If I had more time, I'd make a dedicated stole for this character, but this worked okay for the time being. I also used the robe from my Atomic Priesthood costume earlier in the month, a hairband as an anchor point, and the morph suit from my Harbinger of Doom costume also earlier in the month. And then to top it all off, a metric ton of organza, or, you know, about 3 meters. I really wanted to play on the classic skin-tight suit of the kind of anime mech pilots, adding a lot of bulk and interest around the neck and shoulders and leaving everything else very streamlined creates to what is a modern or historically orientated eye a very unbalanced shape, and I think that's what makes it interesting. I can definitely think of a lot of details I'd like to add to this costume given time, but I think I have a pretty good baseline here to build on. I hope you've enjoyed this costume, and I will see you for the next one tomorrow. The costume for this one was fairly simple. I layered a white skirt underneath a black skirt because I like that Victorian petticoat aesthetic. On the top we've got this chiffon tunic which I'm wearing underneath this waistcoat, which has a exciting lace-up back detail. Then for accessories, the main one I used was this collar. It's made out of mesh and covered in iridescent beads and sequins. It looks very exciting and organic, and I really like the effect that it gives. I also had some black shiny necklaces, a couple of insect-themed brooches, a few other bits of jewellery, and a pair of lace fingerless gloves. For the makeup, I tried to mix elements of skull and lizard. I think for a comparatively quick look, it looks very effectively inhuman. Instead of wearing the necklaces as necklaces, I've actually suspended them between two of the brooches across my chest. I feel like the combination of Ebenezer Scrooge Victoriana and the weirdly organic, inorganic elements gives this exactly the right otherworldly bureaucracy aura. There definitely aren't enough games that let me play bureaucrats, and I feel I would love to play this character just to have a chance to screw people over via paperwork. I hope you've enjoyed this costume, and I will see you for the next one tomorrow. Okay friends, today we're going to learn how to pin a veil. This doesn't just work for nuns, but also general medieval veils, that's what it's based on. A modern nun's wimple is a little bit different, but unless you're going to put a lot of effort into making something very, very modern, this does the job just fine. To put together the veil, you're going to need 2 long strips of fabric to wrap around your head as bands, a bit to go around your neck that is smaller, and then a larger veil to go over the top of your head. The bands that I've got here are about 3 centimeters or just over an inch wide and about 70 centimeters long. That is 27 inches or so. You might need to adjust that for your own head. Smaller veil, which I will refer to as a wimple because that's how I know it, is about 52 centimeters by 43 centimeters. That's 21 inches by 17 or thereabouts. And then the larger veil is about 70 centimeters by 52, or 27 inches by 20. I've used a sheet weight cotton here. Actually, you want something lighter under normal circumstances, but I was doing this in a hurry. To start off with, you want to pin the first of the bands around your forehead, like you're in a bad remake of The Karate Kid. Literally just use straight sewing pins for this. If you weave them through 2 or 3 times, they're actually surprisingly secure. The second band goes under the chin around the top of your head, like a weird bandage. At one point in medieval history, this was actually fashionable just on its own. I like to find the center point of my wimple to make sure it's pretty even on both sides, and you just pin up both corners to the bands. I find aiming for where the 2 bands cross makes for the securest veil, and although this ended up being a little bit loose with the size of wimple that I had. This isn't a requirement, but I also chose to pin it in the back to make the folds around my neck neater. Then the veil goes on top. I folded the front edge under by about an inch or so to give me a thicker edge. And as this is supposed to be a nun, I pinned it to the band across my forehead, completely flush. This also totally works for 20th century nurses' uniforms. And again, this isn't necessary, but I pinned the front corners of the veil together behind my head to make sure that it sat smoothly around my ears. And there you go. That is how you pin a veil. With a little bit of effort, you can make it much neater than I've done it here. I hope you've enjoyed this costume, and I will see you tomorrow. So sometimes there's an obvious answer to a prompt, and other times it can be fun to go a little bit off-piste. It would have been really easy to interpret this in a very straightforward fantasy way and come up with some kind of generic armoured paladin. But I decided to do something a little bit different and put more of an urban fantasy spin on the whole affair. Social justice paladins represent, am I right? I hope you've enjoyed this costume, and I'll see you tomorrow. I decided I was going to keep this one nice and simple. So I've got this white boiler suit, a white blouse with a lace detail, this tank top which is actually made out of suede, the all-important Doc Martens, and a black bandana. I feel like keeping this pretty monochrome works quite well. It could definitely do with more accessories, but I didn't want to introduce anything that would definitely qualify as a health and safety violation. Remember kids, when working with heavy machinery or dangerous magic, unnecessary jewellery is a hazard. I hope you've enjoyed this costume, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Hello.
Hello.
Alright.
Yeah.
Cool. Are you photos or filming?
Filming.
Filming, so I should go away.
I'm nearly done.
You don't want me to make pancakes while you're filming?
You can make pancakes while I'm filming, I don't really care. This still gets voice-overed anyway. I'm only going to be a couple of seconds.
Yeah, sure.
Unlike a lot of the other costumes I've done for this series, this one relies a lot on kind of specialist equipment. For the record, I did make my own gambeson, and it definitely needs new sleeves, so how I did that might be something that comes up in a future video. Let me know if that's something you'd like to see on the channel. But also I just don't think this costume would work quite the way it does without the armour. The shoulders that I have I got second hand from another LARPer, but actually originally came from an Etsy store. The rest of my armour is from Wormwick. It's polyurethane, so it's extremely light, but it does have to be said not terribly size inclusive. And by not terribly size inclusive, I mean it barely fits me. This is definitely one of the areas where it's really obvious that people are defaulting to making things for 6 foot tall, medium build blokes. I really do think it's about time that started changing. Obviously I am on the slim side, so the fact that I'm wearing everything on the smallest hole isn't that weird, but I'm 5'6", which is kind of tall, and I could not wear this if I was any shorter. Also, I wear my greaves the wrong way around because my legs bend the wrong way, so that's fun. In summary, I'm Batman. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you tomorrow. Today's is nice and simple. Some plain coloured trousers, a flouncy sleeved shirt, another top with a better neckline over that, a waistcoat, some strips to garter my lower legs, braces, and a distinctive piece of jewellery. I also added my very worn woolen cloak for the final look. I hope you've enjoyed today's costume, and I will see you tomorrow. The basis for this one was pretty simple. My vintage swing coat, which doubles as a scholar's robe, a suitably esoteric looking necklace, and then a button-up shirt and waistcoat. However, you can't play a character with a secret without having a secret, so I decided to do a tentacly kind of design coming down my arm. I started out by sketching this in eyeliner pencil, then blocked out one side of the tentacles in a dark green colour. I accented this with a bit of teal and olive, just make it a little bit more three-dimensional. Doesn't come across terribly well on camera, I have to admit. And then the other side of the tentacles I filled in a sort of beige colour and topped that up with a little bit of gold. I picked out a colour that was slightly darker than my skin tone to go all the way around the edge, blending it out a little bit so it looked more like shadows. And then I went in with a couple of different eyeliner pencils to try and get a sort of sucker effect going up the inside of the tentacles. I wasn't completely happy with how this worked, but from a distance, it looks pretty good. Then as a final touch, I coated them in this holographic eyeshadow topper from Barry M. I really like this product for giving a fine layer of glitter over the top of work you've already done. It's very effective at not disturbing the underlying layers and reads very well when you move. I hope you've enjoyed this costume, and I will see you for the next one tomorrow. Sometimes you start with one distinctive piece you already own and build a whole outfit from there. I have these gloves that a friend of mine made for a different character for a different game, like several years ago now, and I use this as a basis to build a whole outfit out of my wardrobe. Admittedly, I have a very alternative wardrobe, which means I have some kind of unusual styles in there. But whatever your personal style is, I would encourage you to bring that into characters that you might play. If there's a style you really like and have always wanted to give it a try, use a game and a character as an excuse to do that. After all, you'll never know if you enjoy it if you don't give it a go. I mean, that's what I did, and now half of my wardrobe is full of obscure, frilly Japanese fashions, so your mileage may vary. I didn't feel like the outfit on its own completely sold Magical Girl, so I also made this wand as a prop. It's not very well constructed. It's basically just a piece of garden stake with a foam design hot glue to the end that I've painted and then added some ribbons to cover up the messy hot glue bits. But I think it's very evocative and really sells the character. When in doubt, one super distinctive prop or costume item will sell most character concepts. I hope you've enjoyed today's costume, and I'll see you tomorrow. With this one, it was less of a question of what I was going to wear, but rather which slightly weird, religiously inspired dress was I going to wear. This is another one where I feel the props really made it. I actually just got a cheap toy trumpet, a couple of layers of silver paint and some fancy red braid, very quickly turned it into a kind of professional looking prop. I also wanted a scroll which I made out of a sheet of 2mm foam, a couple of dowels at either end, which I very roughly painted in time for this video, but really want to go back to and put some more details in. Overall, I think the shape of the scroll works really well, and it has a nice satisfying weight to carry around and scroll and unscroll without worrying about damaging it the way I would with a paper prop. I hope you've enjoyed this video and that you'll stick around for the final installment in the Halloween series tomorrow.